I just realized a pattern in myself. I'm excited because noticing a pattern means I can alleviate the pattern from my life, right? So a pattern represents a cycle that's been repeating, and in this case, the cycle that's been repeating, it's been repeating for a very long time. But I want to talk about it and kind of unbury it right here. Just because here's my latest example of what I talk about on my channel, which is how to alleviate ourselves from these unwanted patterns and loops of behavior. And now I've discovered a repeating pattern, right? So far, here's how I noticed the pattern. Well, I was actually in the bathroom, just taking a moment to myself there, and it just popped in my head. So I had mulled it over a bit when it happened, and I'll explain to you what happened most recently. But I let it go. So I didn't catch on to a pattern at that time. So this is a few days past, and then it just popped in my head as an awareness. Oh, that's a pattern. And I saw the pattern I was just shown. Okay, so here's what happened. And then I'll explain what the pattern is. Well, first I'll say what the pattern is. This is not rehearsed. The pattern is of me being misunderstood, right? And we can all be misunderstood. That's not a problem necessarily. But it's the after effects for me. I feel like I don't know the meaning of this, right? Like I haven't fully understood why this has been happening. So that's what I need to explore. So, because it's happened on a few different levels, now that I see the pattern, I'll explain the levels that it's happening on. And maybe through talking about it, I'll be able to see in myself what's rooting it in and resolve it for myself. So the pattern that I noticed was, well, the other day I was in the lake with my granddaughters. There's a private beach here. And my kids went over to play with some other kids. But I was a distance away from them, just watching them. I was in my float. And I noticed that the little boy let go of his float. And he was already over his head, so he couldn't get it. I was a distance away, but I saw it before it happened. I knew it was going to happen, so I had already started to go towards them. When the kids play, I like to give them some space, of course, because, my girls are getting socialized, and my youngest granddaughter just about to start school, so I really, need to let her figure things out. So anyway, I noticed that on the beach, the parent of this child, or one of the adults that are with this child, noticed that the float is gone too, and I say, I say, hey, I'm going to try to get it. Because they're on the beach totally dry, haven't been in the water. And so I go towards it, and it just keeps going away. So it became a bigger task than I was actually prepared for, or thought it might be. I thought about giving up. it was sort of getting away from me. And then I thought, oh, this little boy will be really sad. And for whatever reason, my brain didn't look for any other solutions besides me getting this float. And I had already told this adult on the beach that I would try to get it, right? Okay. So I continued chasing this float. It was quite a ways. It went down like 2 more docks before I was able to get it. And just as I was able to get it, I hear my kids start yelling for me on the beach. And I'm like thinking like, what, do they not know where I am? Like, what's going on? Are they okay? Like, I can see them. There's no like splashing around or, no one seems to be in trouble, but they're just yelling for me, both of them really loud, And I'm thinking, well, why won't one of the adults over there that knew I was going for this float tell them that I'll be right back or point out where I am? Like, and also it's troubling that their attention spans were so short that they couldn't keep track of the fact that they just saw me leave to get this float. But anyway, then this person that I had waved to, who was on the beach, who I said I would get this float, comes up on a paddle boat, like a pedal boat. And he's like, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. I was like, yeah, I just hope somebody is keeping an eye on my kids. Because, they had just been yelling and I didn't know what was going on. And I thought someone would have told them that, what was up. They're not in very deep water or whatever. They're okay, but still, like, they think I'm missing. And he's taking the flow. It gets caught on everything I have in my hand, because not only was I going to do this like unprepared, like I was literally handicapped while doing it, because I had 2 goggle face masks in my hand plus my float. So I only had 1 arm to swim with, which made the whole thing a lot more difficult. But anyway, so his string for his float gets caught on my thing. So I've got to untangle it, and he goes, rude, but okay. And I was like, how is that rude? And he's like, doesn't want to talk about it anymore. He's like, no, it's fine. I was like, well, it's just like that everybody's yelling over there, I say to him. Like, he's in a boat. Obviously, he can get places really fast compared to me, who's swimming handicapped with 2 masks and a float in her hand. And he's just going to take this float that I swam for, and my kids are way far away, and I'm thinking, like, help a sister out, right? Like, you can either tow me back, or you can get right back to my kids and tell them, and make sure they're all good. But I was like, well, everybody's yelling. He's like, yeah, I know, like, my parents, but he's not saying, like, that his parents are watching my kids. I can confirm this by a later part of the story. He was saying that he thought I was referring to his parents yelling. And I said, no, my kids. And he just left, like, on his little paddle boat, and took a leisurely stroll back to the beach while I swam rapidly as I could. And it ended up that I got back to the beach, and then he came back to the beach a little bit after, like maybe a moment or 2 after. And I was like, okay, this guy, like, why does he think I'm, like, what? So at first I was thinking, was I rude? Like, because I was a bit upset in that moment, because my kids were like yelling for me. And I was realizing that I had made a bad mistake, that I shouldn't have gone for this float and left them, because, yeah, I thought that they were aware of what I was doing, but obviously they weren't. Obviously their attention spans are too short or something, because it had only been, I don't know, 3 minutes, and they were yelling for me. So anyway, I felt like dumb that I had done that, that I shouldn't have gone for the float if my kids weren't going to be like watched over while I was doing it, at least when the guy saw that it was taking so long. But instead he got in the boat, which is smart. But then what about my kids? You know, like he knew we're at a private beach. It's very small. We're the only ones there. Like he knows that those kids are with me, and that those kids were playing with his kids, and that I'm going to get the float for his kid. And like, wouldn't you keep an eye on the other person's kids if they were going to get your float? Like, but at the same time, I should not have assumed that. I don't know if that guy's retarded or whatever. Like, he might not have the capacity to think of that. And I'm not using that to refer to someone with Down syndrome. I'm saying, like, literally, like, unable to think, retarded in the thinking. So, he gets back, and I say, like, I was like, look, I'm not trying to be rude. I said, I just didn't realize that, like, everybody else was oblivious to what was going on. And the reason I said that was, like, because I had realized in my swim back that, like, oh, these people didn't even realize I was going to get this float. Like, even though we made eye contact and I told him I was going, like, he must not have realized it. So he must think that I was expecting him to watch my kids without even knowing that I went to get the float. That must be why he thinks I'm rude, right? And, so he gets out of the water again, walks away from me, doesn't, like, have a conversation. This guy is, like, very passive aggressive. He's, like, the least masculine man I've ever encountered, basically. Anyway, like, he can't have a direct conversation to resolve this miscommunication or to even, like, care, that he's just passive aggressively called me rude over some sort of miscommunication. So anyways, then I see him. I'm back with the kids now. Like, they're fine. Nothing has happened to cause them any harm, thankfully. And then I see him go up to his people on the beach. His father greets him and says, "Oh, you had to chase that float quite a ways, didn't you?" To him. So his father was not aware that I was going after the float, obviously. And then he goes, "Yeah." And then he goes to his other people who are sitting in chairs, and he's talking to them, and then I see them look over at me. So he must be telling them his experience, right? Like, whatever, okay. So they leave soon after. And I'm with my kids, busy, whatever. Internally, it was kind of bothering me. Like, I was just like, what the hell? Like, how? I was like, maybe he thought I said something about, I just hope somebody's watching their own kids. Like, maybe he thought I was passive aggressive towards him, talking about how he should have been watching his kids so their float didn't get away. I was like, maybe there was some sort of misunderstanding. I didn't, like, get why he was taking me as rude when all it really, like, he could have just, like, talked to me and helped me out and got me back to my kids faster, or, that's what I was just like, and I was really feeling stupid over, like, even exerting myself to help this situation when it put what I felt like myself and my kids at risk. But anyways, it was like, okay, well, everything turned out okay, so the only thing I can take it as is a lesson. So I filed it in my mind as a lesson and as, like, a silly thing that I did. Like, I put too much expectation. I put an expectation on other people that they would do what I do, which is watch out for someone's kids when they were going, on the beach without an adult. Like, I'm always watching kids on the beach without an adult, but, like, especially if someone was helping out my kid, I just felt like it was a given. It's a small community beach or whatever, but I was wrong. I was like, it was hard for me to wrestle with that, like, how stupid I had been. So eventually, though, I was able to, like, let myself feel better about it and just understand that, like, I don't have control over whether other people. I don't know if he even understood me correctly. I don't know if he has the capacity to. I don't know if I'm just like hyper vigilant and hyper aware of my surroundings because of all the trauma that I've dealt with in the past. And like, these people are just on vacation. They're chilling. They don't think about other people when they're on vacation. Um, there's like differences in people, right? So I'm like also allowing myself to feel the shame about the decision I made, about how it could have gone worse, about how there was a potential risk to my children if I was that far away from them at the beach and things like that. And I let myself feel the shame of that. And so I processed this all through. And then, I had to, because it was just kind of in my mind bothering me for a while. So I processed it through, and then when I processed it through, I was so thankful. I was like, oh, because I don't have a lot of things that happen like this that bother my mind. So when I have something in my mind that's like needs to be processed, I process it, because like otherwise I'm clear, free, peaceful, and that is the much preferred state, being present. This had been not allowing me to be present because I was just mulling it over. But then I resolved it. It stopped coming in my mind. That was a few days ago. And then today I just realized I'm like, oh, that's a pattern of being misunderstood. Like, and then what I realized in that moment was for me, it turned into this big thing, because one of the things I was mulling over was like, okay, where it's a small community beach, like, is this guy going to now spread this misinformation about me to all the other people on the beach? And they're going to have this impression that I was like snarky to him when I wasn't. I was really just concerned about my kids, and these were just a few of the thoughts that I had mulled over, right? So it went from me being misunderstood to these bigger consequences, which I had eventually just like when I came to rest on it. One of the reasons was because I just told myself, look, if I have to address this with everybody else, then I will. Like, I will stick up for myself. I will explain. And I think that's part of what helped me move through it, because I had a plan. I had a solution. I had like, if I have to face this, yes, it'll be uncomfortable. No, I do not want to have to do it. It'll be iffy to know when I need to do it and with whom, right? Because who knows who these people know from the community. But I will do it if I need to, right? And I think that was much different than any way I've ever handled this in the past. And it made me think of this one scenario where I was working at a local community like restaurant bar place doing readings. I've mentioned that. And there was definitely some miscommunications going on there, for sure. And I think it was just in more than one place. But I could just see that I was being misunderstood by some. And also, like, I had a poster up there, and somebody like scratched the face out of it. And so things like this were happening, right? Like, so I knew like the atmosphere, like there was some people that were against me, right? I didn't know why, but like my cards and stuff told me that it was some miscommunications being spread about me. And the thing about it is the pattern that I noticed with both this guy at the beach, because he was passive aggressive and he wouldn't let us have a communicating like conversation that would like reconcile the situation for both of us. He was just passive aggressive, and then he didn't want to deal with it, like, because it's like the least manly way you could ever deal with something. But sorry to be passive aggressive, but right, I'm talking about being passive aggressive, and then I was passive aggressive. That's funny. Um, but anyway, with this community group of people where I was doing some work, it was the same type thing where I did try to have communication with some people about it, but no one would ever like directly have a conversation with me. And I was told later that they talked about me for years later, by people who did stay in that community. Like I was told, like, oh, they still talk about you. And I was just like thinking, like, because I left. Okay, so what happened was, I knew the miscommunication was happening. I was not being welcomed to clear it up, and then I just left the situation. And with the guy on the beach, I knew there was a miscommunication happening. I was not being welcomed to clear it up, despite my efforts in both places. And then I had to just leave. But like the fallout from it, like who knows what it is, right? Like with these people, like who knows what these people now think of me because I didn't clear it up. And I was thinking about the other place that this pattern happens, right? Because a pattern, you might think like, well, that's 2 times. How is that a pattern? Well, here's how it's a pattern. It's been happening in my life all along. It's just that the other place that it happens, I have kind of written off because it's with family members. I have a consistent pattern of being misunderstood by family members and them not allowing me to be understood. The, and like I've noted this as a narcissistic tactic, that if somebody is like just intent on misunderstanding you, that there's nothing you can do but walk away. That deserves space, you know? And so with some family members, I've noticed it, and I've just accepted that that's how they are. And so I stopped like letting it even be a thing for me. Like I just expect that I will be misunderstood by them and that they will not want to understand me. And that's actually kind of very unhealthy, right? First of all, to have expectations of them because now they're held to that in my mind, which doesn't allow them to be at a higher standard. But also it happens so many times that it's like, I'm not expecting anything else. But I think the more appropriate way to handle that might be to at least allow for whatever possibility it is. Like, and to be, yes, discerning, but like also, I don't know what they're going to do this time. Maybe they will want to understand this time, you know? And I think one of the things that can perpetuate the pattern is the frustration that happens within me about them not wanting to understand. Because I take that as like an insult. Like it's sort of an act of violence to purposely misunderstand somebody. And it's a tactic that a lot of narcissistically coping people use to make you feel disempowered. Like that your words don't matter. Like it doesn't matter what you say, do, think, or feel. It's not going to affect them. They don't care. They don't want to hear, you know? So, I don't know. Let's see. So, this pattern obviously got louder. And it happened with a stranger, you know? So, it's obviously coming to my attention because it needs to be healed within me. And the pattern, I think, what it needs from me is yes, to not hold people who are in the pattern with me for a long time into that pattern of expecting that they'll want to misunderstand me, because people can change at any time. And it doesn't also mean that I'll have an expectation that they will understand me. It just means that I'll be more neutral on it, right? Because now I have a fixed mindset on that. So that's what's holding the pattern in. The fixed mindset is that I will expect to be misunderstood. That's the pattern. So because I go around with the energy in me of expecting to be misunderstood, because I've been through that pattern so many times with my family members, that now manifested in a scenario with a stranger. And I never thought consciously about being misunderstood by strangers. To me, that slapped me in the face. Like I'm like, I would think that I'm probably the least rude person that there is. I have, I have the ability to be rude. I just choose not to. So, to me, like being passive aggressively told that I was rude by a stranger was pretty harsh. But I can see now that that was just the pattern, like slapping me in the face. It was just like, hey, you still get this pattern. It's like, oh, okay. So now I see it. And I didn't see it when I first started this video talking about it. Like, it took me 25 minutes now to talk my way through what pattern I noticed to find out what that root was, what the issue is. And the issue is that I've been expecting people to misunderstand me. Ooh. So if I hold the vibration of expecting that, then that's what I'm going to live out. So I don't want to live that out, right? I want to release that pattern. So I've acknowledged the pattern. And now I'm going to validate myself on why I have the pattern. Well, that one I've already done too, because obviously I've been around a lot of people who have done that. And then whether or not they were going to choose not to do that or not, I didn't even notice, because I just started to just expect them to do that. So it happened enough times and I felt a way about it. So maybe there was a first time that I was misunderstood. Oh, yes. That's what I felt when this stranger misunderstood me, and I felt like smacked in the face and like so wronged and offended. That's the feeling. That was the feeling that lodged this pattern in me. So it's valid that I have it, because it did happen to me, and it was really disturbing to me at the time, and I was not able to process it at the time, and I was very overwhelmed by how it made me feel at the time, because it could put me at risk and all this kind of stuff, right? Because being ostracized by your peers and like shut out, and like you don't get your needs met if you're not understood, and all this stuff. I also think it's interesting that I once said that all I wanted in life was to be known wholly and understood fully. So it's like I kind of knew that my subconscious was holding this pattern, but I didn't know consciously. And so after validating myself, I understand why I have the pattern. Except, okay, there I am, a grown adult, 49 years old, and I have a pattern that has caused me to expect to be misunderstood and protect myself against feeling whatever that is. Maybe I've been over-explaining as a way of coping with it. I've been not explaining at all as a way of coping with it. I've stayed quiet. I've not expressed myself in certain situations. Yeah, like maybe my perception of the situation was that I wouldn't be understood, but maybe there were openings that I didn't see, because I'm looking through the veil of my wound. My wound is helping to color the way that I handle this situation. So I can't see it clearly until I clear it up, right? So, all right, I accept that this is the pattern that I have. And now I need to be present with the feeling. Now, the nice thing is I was present with the feeling that day, the feeling that I was present with was mostly shame. And I think there are some other feelings that go along with this, because if you think about me at some earlier point in life being misunderstood, maybe even purposefully, shame may have been one of the feelings, but what else would it have been? It's like injustice. Yeah, it totally offends my Libran ways. Like, I can feel the tears coming now. Yeah. They're at the back of my eyes. It offends my Libran. It's so unfair. It's so gross. Oh, I'm so offended by it. I feel that. So the last step here is for me to be present with how it feels to be misunderstood willfully. It feels like I'm being treated like I'm so unimportant and don't matter. It hurts really bad. Yeah, I can feel like a sheet over my heart and my mouth. I'm just going to let this feeling be with me because it might need some time, and I have the time. So I'm going to just be present with this feeling. This is an uncomfortable feeling, and I'm allowing it to be with me. I'm not thinking about the past. I'm not wishing it was different. I'm not worried about the future. This feeling can be with me now. I'm not blaming anyone. It's my feeling to be with. And as I feel like the discomfort in my body around it and the energy, when I'm still, it's more amplified and I notice it more, right? So I just breathe with it. Breathe with it. But without letting my focus go off of it. This is presence. I can feel it in my mind. It's having to do with the story I told myself about what was happening. You know, there are other places to feel things when we feel them at this stage, like when we're present with a feeling. We might feel it somewhere else, like in our heart or our solar plexus. But I can just feel this one in my mind right now. And if I lose the feeling, I just remember the situation that happened recently at the lake and I bring the feeling back. And if I'm able to bring the feeling back, then I know that it still would like to have my presence. So then I tried to bring it back, and it was more like I felt like a bit of humor in the fact that I was misunderstood. Yeah, I was just imagining that guy saying, like, rude, but okay. I think I would just laugh. Like, wow, yeah, okay. So what happens when I've accepted that this was the case, and I've lowered my ego defenses because I've validated myself, then this energy with my presence just moves. It moves through my central channel because I've accepted it. My central channel is open. There's no resistance to it. It's allowed to be here. But eventually, because it's energy, it moves. Energy always keeps moving, right? And instead of moving to a future time in my life, this time it got to leave. like that energy is not looping on that level. If there are deeper levels, maybe I would find them later. Excuse me. But it's really a very simple process, and I think some people might not like think that it could work because it's so simple. But this process that I'm talking about, and like the formula that I'm sharing, it moves the energy. It allows the energy to move. But like, you can't be doing it for the reason of that. You gotta be doing it for the reason of like honoring your experience, honoring all the data points in your experience, including the feelings that you couldn't previously process with an experience that you had. Excuse me. So I ran out of coconut milk yesterday, so I had some homemade ice cream in my freezer, made with heavy cream, and I used it in my coffee, and that is why I'm coughing, because it made me like, I don't usually drink dairy, so ugh. I have regrets. I have regrets. Anyway, I don't have regrets for taking the time to process through this pattern, because it was really worth it. It was really worth it. Okay, so because I'm going to use this clip of me being present for another purpose, I'll probably edit out that little bit of coughing and stuff in the middle. But because of that, I'm going to now just continue talking about the presence and how powerful it is for a few more moments. So just to let you know. Yeah, so once I'm present with the energy, I sort of allow it to take its time, right? It's like we're on the energy's timeline. Like what that energy needs to do, it will do. I don't have to direct it or control it or limit it anymore. I'm just becoming the version of myself that can handle that energy. Whereas the whole reason the energy got lodged into me with the pattern was because I couldn't handle it. I was too overwhelmed, or I was in a misunderstanding, or I was too scared at the time. So now that I am the version of myself who can handle it, that's when the energy moves. And it moves on its own, and it doesn't do it because I want to get rid of it. You know, that energy can come or go because I'm the version of myself who can handle it, you know? And you saw that my energy, like my body, started handling it completely different. It started being amused by it. You know, that energy elicited an entirely different response from me that was more true to who I am, you know, as a heart-based being, right? Because if someone accuses me, an open-hearted being, which I can now be once I've cleared that energy, or once that energy has cleared, then it's amusing to think that they would think I was being rude, right? Like it's funny only on the level of like human nature is funny. It's funny. Well, it's not funny and like I would want to laugh in their face. Like I definitely wouldn't want to laugh if that happened, right? But it's funny to me to picture that scenario and to think that I formally reacted the way that I did, which was very worried and shameful and all this kind of stuff, right? Say that happens again and someone misunderstands me and is passive aggressive, like I'm not going to laugh at that moment because that would be rude. But I might have a little giggle inside, right? Because I still need to be respectful of them, and I need to be compassionate, right? So compassion gets to replace this pattern for me now. So my compassion says, oh, this person is seeing life through a lens of maybe having a lot of misunderstandings, you know? Like that might make things rough. He might be looking at the world like everybody around him is kind of a jerk. And so he expects me to be a jerk too. You know, maybe, right? I'm not expecting that that's what it is, but it's possible. Any number of possibilities exist for what that person's perspective is telling them about what just happened between us. If there's an opportunity to clear it up, I would like to have that. But if there isn't, it's also not going to weigh on me anymore, because now I've cleared up that and I know who I am, even in the face of that. You know? It's really beautiful. Presence is very powerful, and what that tells us is that our focus, what we put our focus on, it's a powerful thing that we have. Our focus is very powerful. And there's this thing that I used to say, like, what you focus on, you get more of. And then I would experience that in life. So I don't know if that's true or not, if it's just because I believe that, but that has been my experience. And maybe that's why focusing on the energy helps it move, because it gets big enough to reanimate, sort of. Like you're putting life back into it so it can do its thing, you know? You're saying, oh, I can handle you now. You don't have to be suppressed. You don't have to be denied. You don't have to be projected. I'm going to be the person who processes you, because this is my experience to process. Okay. That concludes today's video. What do you think? Any questions?